What's up, guys? Just over 2 weeks to the NFL draft, and I think I've got my last 2024 quarterback breakdown for you before draft night. Michael Penix, big arm, big kid, big numbers at Washington, ton of wins, almost a perfect season, except for that pesky Michigan championship game. Why isn't Michael Penix considered a first-round pick? Well, partially it's because he's 24. And partially it's because he's always hurt. But there's more to it than that for me. Personally, I wouldn't take him till like the third, which means I wouldn't take him. He wouldn't be an option for me because he's not going to be there. We'll get into exactly why, but I'm not going to do that until I show you the film.
As always, we're going to start with the arm talent. So range and power, Penix has got an A-. When he uses his elongated release, he can really crank that ball. Here from the 35, easily throws a line drive into the end zone. That's a 40-yard throw on a rope. Not a lot of guys have that in their bag. Here you're about to see, from the end zone, it's inaccurate. He way overthrows it, but he gets the ball to the opposite 35. That's 65 yards. Penix has got that. He's got that arm strength. When it comes to velocity, I only give him a B+ because, well, it's inconsistent. Additionally, while he can put insane zip on the ball, he lacks touch. And that's not great for a guy who relies on his deep ball. Right? When Penix cocks back and uses that longer release, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, he can really zing that thing. Right? There it is again, 40 yards on a line drive. Not easy to do, but you're not seeing a lot of touch on any of these deeper passes. Next up, release. This is one of Penix's biggest problems. He's got two releases. He's got a short one, which I'll show you right here, and he's got a long one. So on the short one, he usually uses this when he feels rushed. The ball comes directly to his ear. He doesn't cock it back, and he just shoves it out, kind of like Jay Cutler used to, where you're throwing a dart. And that's fine if you have a lot of arm talent, right? But Penix doesn't have enough arm talent to get away with that like Jay Cutler did. Here you can see it a little better from the tight copy. All right. Feels a little bit of pressure. Rolls. Ball comes straight to his ear and shoves it out. Really low trajectory. See how it's barely getting over that lineman in front of him? Penix is like 6'4". He's a big dude. There's no reason that this ball should be barely getting over linemen. And he gets a lot of balls batted because of this release. Now, both of these releases are going to have a really short, low launch point. They come out from his shoulder, not from his ear. And that's going to lead to batted balls and balls sailing on him, going upwards and going over his receiver, rather than coming down like that beautiful Joe Flacco over-the-top delivery that is preferred. Now, I don't care about mechanics much, but when they manifest themselves in bad accuracy, that's when it's a problem. So here you'll see his longer release, right? I said he's got two. This is when he's really trying to drive it. You'll see ball comes over his head a little bit more. He cocks back and holds it. This is more of the Jake Delhomme release, I call it. He cocks back and holds it near his ear, and then he just launches it. And again, it misses high. It's too high because he's pushing up rather than coming down. As far as mobility goes, Penix gets a bad rap. He's actually not that immobile. People talk about him as a statuesque, immovable quarterback, and he's actually fairly athletic. He doesn't move because he can't multitask. He can't think about how to be a runner and process the defense at the same time. And he's focused on being a passer first, which is good. He just doesn't have the bandwidth. Next up, playmaking. And this is another real issue. This is probably the biggest issue with Penix's game. He had perfect protection at Washington. He moved in the pocket less than any of the other quarterbacks, right? He doesn't extend plays. And he panics a lot whenever there's even a little pressure. And when he gets off platform, he can't make throws off platform. Everything is that shoulder out push delivery. He doesn't have the ability to change his arm slot like a lot of dudes do. That's about the best playmaking you'll see from him, is just rolling out of the pocket a little bit and hitting a deeper shot. When he's under pressure, he can't throw accurately. He can't throw through contact. He can't even throw when there's people near him. All right, accuracy and precision. Remember that accuracy is if you can hit the bullseye, precision is just how frequently you do. Penix, I give a C+. It's not good, and it's mostly because of that release. Right, so his deep accuracy is definitely his best area of accuracy, and Penix's deep ball is kind of what made him popular. But it wasn't great. I gave it a B+. It's better than these highlights are going to make it seem, just because I didn't have all 22 of the Texas game. And the Texas game, his deep ball was ungodly. He didn't miss, and that's why his stats were so huge in that game. However, it's not what you would expect it to be from a guy who's a deep ball specialist. And I have enough deep balls in this cut up. These aren't just the misses. These are all of the passes. Oregon again, Arizona, and Michigan. All the deep balls he threw in those 4 games, which are the best competition he played. And it was not good. He has a tendency to overthrow when he's trying to hit them in stride, and he has a tendency to underthrow on purpose to create completions because he knows that his deep accuracy, his depth perception is not great. So these are the accurate ones. Again, receiver has to stop and adjust a little bit, kind of a flutter ball. Not perfect. Here's another one where he babies it, right? He could have led his receiver a little bit more. Instead, he makes his receiver jump and win at the catch point. And that works when you have Rome Odunze going against college defenders. Does it work in the NFL? I'm not sure. Penix certainly has good deep accuracy, in my opinion. It's not like Drake Mays, which is insane, but it's good. It's above the NFL average. Intermediate accuracy is where Penix really struggles. It's the worst part of his game, and it's because he has that upward release, so he's going to miss high over the middle. Especially because over the middle, you typically have to spend more time in the pocket. You have to drive the ball, so he has to use that longer release. He's afraid to take a hit. It's just, he's not going to throw the intermediate ball a lot, much less do it well. And then, like if he could get clean pockets and have the confidence to use that longer, clunky release that he needs for the velocity, where he turns his whole body and he cocks the ball by his ear for a little extra long, he could be a really good intermediate passer because of that arm talent. But he would need to rework his mechanics, and guys at 24 don't rework their mechanics. As for short accuracy, I give it a B. I'm not going to show you. You don't need to see it. All right, processing. Now, the mental side of the game is an area that Penix is both really good at, but also struggles with. And I'm going to get into the nuances of this, because he is a 24-year-old quarterback. He's seen a lot. And pre-snap, that really shows up. He's got full control over audibles. He has full control over protections, and he does a solid job. He usually knows where he's looking on his first read. Here's a mesh. What the hell happened? Right, so part of the curse of Washington's offense is that the offensive line is awesome. It won the Outland Trophy for best in college football. He's also got Rome Odunze, going to be a top 10 pick. He's also got Polk and McMillan, who are both NFL caliber receivers. Here's a simple mesh. Pre-snap processing, you should be looking over the middle. Instead, he's looking out to this flat for some godforsaken reason. Hit the mesh. You're going to get to the 10-yard line. They're going to cut the ball upfield and get to the 5-yard line. Instead, he holds onto the ball and waits. And he's allowed to do that because he's spoiled by this incredible offensive line. But it's a luxury he won't have at the next level. Right? So his pre-snap was actually bad on this play, leading to his post-snap being woeful. And then finally, it's too late to hit this mesh. He's already waited too long. He swings it out to his running back, and that's a fine play. And you're not going to see that on the stat sheet. And most casual observers will say, he took what the defense gave him, but he didn't. He took the third thing the defense gave him. And in the NFL, the defense might give you 1, maybe 2 things, not 3. So that's just not going to translate. All right, so let's break it down real quick. We're going to have a version of cover 3 where 3 defensive backs have the deep thirds of the field, and then 4 guys hang out in that mid-level. Now, the reason that it's going to be weird looking is because if we just let the play run a little bit, you see this safety's obviously running at the offensive line, and that's because he is going to blitz, and that's why we have this defensive end at the top of the screen dropping out into coverage. So it's still going to function the same as cover 3, but it's much more difficult to detect pre-snap, and really, I don't expect Penix to understand what he's seeing until right now, milliseconds before the snap, when the safety starts charging at him. That being said, let's diagram the routes, and I'll show you how Penix should be thinking through this play. So Odunze is going to run this kind of like post-stop. And over on the other side, you're going to have some motion and a similar kind of veer curl. Now, the primary read against cover 2, which is what it looks like to begin with, right? Because you got these two safeties up at the top, and before you see the third safety charge in, basically, to blitz, you think this is probably going to be split field coverage. It's probably going to be cover 2. If that's the case, you've got a Dunze, I think this is Polk, coming on this deep over, and he'll basically just run away from the coverage. So that's what Penix is thinking. What he should be thinking, however, you've got this running back who's going to block for a second and then release into a screen over here. Now, at the exact second that Penix sees that safety charge up towards the line of scrimmage, he should realize, oh, this is going to be some kind of a blitz. I'm probably not going to have time for this big, deep, winding over route to clear all the defenders. Additionally, it turns out, if Penix was clairvoyant, he would understand that Arizona's not actually showing him cover 2. They're showing him cover 3, and therefore the over is not the move anyway. Let's run the film. Let's get rid of all this clutter. And I'll show you how Penix kind of messes this up. So you do get the blitz that we thought, and the offensive line picks it up perfectly. Penix shifts a little bit in the pocket, so that's nice. That's about as much playmaking as we're going to get from him. We see Odunze hit that post curl, and he stops. Nothing. Look, it could be open. You could gun that in there. But Penix isn't particularly comfortable throwing on the run. He needs that longer release to drive the ball 15 yards past the line of scrimmage, and there is a linebacker underneath who makes it scary. I get it. What you should never do is look at number 2, who's crossing the entire field and running into double coverage, and launch him a floater. Now, Penix does the best thing he can do by throwing it out of bounds where only his guy can get it, but that's not a throwaway. That's just a bad throw. Meanwhile, I want you guys to see something right here. Remember that running back who I said was going to release into a screen? Yeah, when you have a blitz, you know that they have less guys downfield. When they have a blitz, running back is usually the first guy who gets let free, who gets uncovered. So dump the ball out to him. It's not third down. You have the option. And as you'll see, if he would have done that, your running back's got one dude to beat to get to the sticks. Like, as long as he beats that linebacker number 5 in the middle of your screen, nobody else is going to stop him. He's going to get a good chunk of yardage. And you're going to stay ahead of the downs on first down. Penix really messed up. Here it is again. Yeah, you have a tiny bit of pressure, and this throws Penix into panic mode. He just can't handle it. And rather than hitting this screen, and you've even got a lead blocker out there, dude. Let your running back cook. God forbid he cuts it up the middle with that lead blocker, taking out that linebacker. Open alley. Tons of room to play with on first down, and Penix instead puts the ball out of bounds because he's scared, because he didn't read properly pre-snap, which is understandable, but he read really poorly post-snap, handling the externalities like crap. He's just not... He's not what you would want to see from a processor after the snap at 25 years old. Again, this one's third down, so it's a little more difficult. But I know what he's thinking. Like, he sees a halo safety and he thinks, oh, I've got man-to-man across the board with one safety, right? And he knows that this particular receiver is running a streak. So he thinks, I'll just throw it to this receiver. He's going to beat his man easy on third down. I'll get a huge chunk play. But he's not going to get the huge chunk play, right? The defensive back keeps up with him enough. Penix feels some pressure, never really gets to his second read, right? So here, you're looking at him. He's at the first down marker, and he's not open yet. Well, most of the time, dudes don't get open within 10 yards in the NFL. Only like Tyreek Hill can do that. So that's something he's going to need to adjust to at the next level. And how much do we want to make a 24-year-old rookie adjust? He needs to be ready. By the time he gets to his second read, he looks to the curl. Well, you should know that you have a 5-yard curl on a 3rd and 10. That's not an option. You can't even try it. So don't look there. Your second read, if you understand that it's 3rd down and you're probably not going for it, needs to be over here. I know it's a deeper, harder throw, but your post is wide open. Now, that being said, if you're under the impression that you are going to be allowed to throw this curl and go for it on 4th and short, if you thought that the processing was bad, the pocket awareness is much worse. I give it a C minus. And it's not that Penix is taking sacks. His offensive line's too good. They don't give him the chance to take sacks. It's that anytime there's even a little bit of pressure, like a hint of pressure coming soon, look right here. This is a very clean pocket. But Penix already is panicking because he noticed a guy is coming eventually. And he shortens up that release. He pushes that ball from his shoulder out to his receiver. It doesn't have the velocity and it doesn't have the accuracy. Anytime he gets even a little bit pressured, he makes terrible decisions and his ball becomes extremely erratic and inaccurate. It's also, you'll notice, it's floating and missing high almost every time. The reason for that is, as we talked about earlier, that shortened release where he just pushes the ball up and out rather than coming over the top. He's not willing to take a hit to make a play. He is not willing to try to break a tackle. He doesn't have the bandwidth to move around in the pocket to try to avoid the hits. He just panics, throws the ball early, throws the ball erratically, and puts the ball in harm's way. And the worst thing is that his particular coping mechanism is to throw the ball with that short release and push it up, making it go high. And when you miss high, that's when you throw picks. That's how interceptions happen, especially over the middle of the field, especially to the second level. Penix's pocket presence is a real problem because he's not going to get the blocking in the NFL that he had in college at Washington with the offensive line that won the award for best offensive line. And I understand why he's skittish. The guy's had a billion injuries and he's 24 years old, right? He's missed several years for injury.
Penix kind of gets a bad rap for his mobility because everybody thinks of him as a statue, and he's actually pretty fast. But that said, it doesn't matter. So I give him a B on his mobility because he actually can move pretty well. He's a good athlete. I think he ran like a 4.6 at his pro day. He's a big man. He's pretty strong. But he's certainly not the kind of athlete you want to run just to run him. And he doesn't have the bandwidth to actually make these plays while processing and thinking as a passer. And that's why his playmaking is a C. It's terrible. This is about the best playmake you will get from him. He can't really alter his platform. He can't really throw from a different trajectory or release. All he's got is that dart throw push ball. And therefore, he can't really throw while moving. He doesn't like to throw while being hit. Like you see, he throws while being hit. He misses. He's not a playmaker. Overall, I think Michael Penix will be a really good backup, or maybe a bad starter who has flashes of brilliance. I think if you make everything perfect for him, like they did in college, he can be productive, maybe even really productive, because theoretically he can do everything. Penix has a really strong arm. He just needs to feel comfortable and take a little extra time to get there. Time you don't have in the NFL, comfort that won't exist because he needs really clean pockets. And in the NFL, nobody has really clean pockets. So it's just not a luxury he'll be afforded the way he was at Washington with the best offensive line in the nation and mediocre Pac 12 defensive lines. He's not going to extend plays. Despite the fact that he's fast, he won't run because he doesn't have the bandwidth to handle what he's looking at as a passer and what he's facing as a rusher. He can only focus on one, and rightfully, he chooses to be a passer. And I have nothing against that. It's just you can't think of him as the guy who runs a 4.6 40 when he doesn't run. So everything's in there for Penix if you ignore the fact that he's 24 and injury prone and the fact that he wasn't really productive before he found an innovative offensive coordinator in Washington and a bunch of NFL caliber receivers and a great offensive line and weak Pac 12 defenses, which is a lot of ifs. I wouldn't draft Michael Penix until about the third round, which means I wouldn't draft him. My comparison for him is Brandon Weeden. Brandon Weeden was also an older prospect who also had a strong arm. And he also was athletic, though it didn't actually manifest itself on the field. I think they're very similar players. And I think, like Brandon Weeden, Michael Penix, if asked to start, will not look good. He will occasionally have flashes of brilliance, which make you think that's the guy we drafted. The big, strong armed, fast, smart guy we drafted. But it turns out that a lot of that smarts was just that he was older. Turns out that a lot of that arm only manifests itself in particular scenarios. And it turns out that their production in college was mostly just due to being in a perfect spot. And I think that if you found a better quarterback, of which there are a few in this class, you'd get better numbers. What do you guys think on Michael Penix? I know that this one's divisive. A lot of people have kind of honed in on him, especially after that Texas game. Don't worry, it filled me too. I watched the Texas game first and I thought, this guy's a top 3 pick. And then I watched all of his other games and I thought, no, not for me. Not in the first round, certainly. But a lot of people have honed in on this guy as their late first round guy, especially once J.J. McCarthy started climbing up boards like crazy. I don't want him. Do you? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe. I think I'm supposed to say that, but it would be nice to get these videos bumping with some numbers before the start of the regular season, because I don't know how much more I'm going to have for you until about August. Until then, however, I will still be grinding film because there is always film to grind. Asta.